And I think it was kind of already evolving. But yesterday, in case you missed it, the NBA lottery, NBA playoffs, NBA draft measurements has changed everything. Has changed everything. And I know that it may seem like a really big statement to make that everything has been changed. But there's been some things that have already been accruing throughout the NBA season that have culminated in yesterday. And I would also say the day before yesterday, but yesterday. Yesterday was the NBA lottery. We figured out who was going to choose first, second, third, fourth, fifth, and all the way through the lottery. And those pick selections have reoriented what teams are determining that they are going to do this offseason. They have tipped dominoes that now are set in motion. And I'm going to get to some of the other things that have been transpiring in the NBA that have created this scenario. But let me just start off with saying everything is about to change. Everything is about to change. I'm on YouTube. The reason why everything is about to change is because there are teams that were on the precipice of having to make significant changes, but were in a championship window. And so they were trying to somewhat freeze their current roster, their current contracts and situation, even if it was in the luxury tax or even in that second apron, they were freezing everything to maintain being in a championship window, namely the Cleveland Cavaliers, the Boston Celtics. All these teams, both of these teams, were in a championship window. And I want to say were. The Golden State Warriors thought when they acquired Jimmy Butler, they could potentially be in a championship window. Things changed. Now down 3-1. Denver, OKC, I think both of them are still kind of standing pat. But the fact that those contending teams are now in a position where they are likely going to have to shift in terms of their trajectory and who they thought they were, and having to make financial decisions, which I'm going to get around to talking about later with the new collective bargaining agreement and the salary cap situations, that now dominoes are tipping. Not just that, Damian Lillard tore his Achilles earlier in this playoffs. Jason Tatum just tore his Achilles. Kyrie Irving blew out his knee, tore his ACL. And now you have teams that were contenders who are now not in position to necessarily continue to contend for a championship, which means that pieces and players on that team, assets, are now going to be available for other teams. Teams that may have been on the outside looking into a championship contention window, maybe on the outside looking into a playoff berth, are now in position to grab some of these assets and pieces. They now are in position to take advantage of how things have shifted for these teams. That, in conjunction with the NBA lottery, Dallas Mavericks getting the number one pick, San Antonio Spurs getting the second pick, Philadelphia 76ers getting that third pick, along with the draft measurements that have come out that hurt some more than others. Finding out that Ace Bailey is 6'7" and not 6'10" is a huge, huge deal. Because Ace Bailey at 6'10" doing what he does was seen as having a far higher ceiling when you're comparing him to a Kevin Durant versus when you're comparing him to Kelly Oubre. These are things that we have to consider. That now all of a sudden teams like Philadelphia with that number 3 pick, who already have a lot of young guys, Tyrese Maxey, Jared McCain, who played really well, who are playing well, and aging and degrading Joel Embiid, aging and degrading Paul George. Now you begin to shift to say, well, if I have a number 3 pick, is there something that I could potentially do to position myself to head in a different direction? Do I want to blow this thing up? Do I want to start over and use the number 3 pick to do so? Is there an extremely talented player who can come in and fill a position of need right now? Just how good is Derek Queen and Kamen Malawach? Considering I have a center who is slowly degrading, and now it seems like it's accelerating more and more. And I still have young pieces like Jared McCain and Tyrese Maxey. These are things that are going to be considered. The Boston Celtics are looking at, I have two of the most expensive contracts in the league. Well, two of three, right? Curry has the other one. And one of them is going to be out for the entire season next year. Is this an opportunity to hit the reset, deal someone like Jalen Brown, and see if I can get a high draft pick to continue to build around Jason Tatum? These are the things that are going to be considered. Yeah, the Sixers almost lost that pick. They did. But these are things that now are in play, fully in play. The Dallas Mavericks winning the Cooper Flag sweepstakes. They also have two very valuable forwards that are already on that team. Not talking about Anthony Davis, talking about PJ Washington and Najee Marshall. 6'7, 6'8, versatile forwards, can score in a myriad of ways on the outside, on the interior. They're physical. They defend multiple positions. Um, they can score around the rim, good in transition. They can create their own shot. Extremely valuable pieces when it comes to trying to build a contending team, because these are the types of guys that do really well in the playoffs. They're the OG Anunoby types, the Josh Hart types, the guys who make the little plays that seem insignificant, but are the difference between coming out with a victory in a playoff game versus a loss. Are those guys available? You've got teams like the Golden State Warriors, where now the cat's out of the bag. Jonathan Kuminga is him. It's him. If he could be your leading scorer in a second round play, not a first round playoff game where you're playing a number 8 seed or you are the 8th seed and it doesn't really matter. No, you're asking him to be the best player on the court for you, and he's keeping you in games. He's dropping 30 points a game with the focus of the defense on him as the primary scoring option, and you're bringing him off the bench of all things. Steve Kerr doesn't want to start him. It is what it is at this point. How much more valuable is he? What does that now mean for a Utah Jazz who lucked out and now are on the outside of those top 3 picks, looking in and now saying, well, if we're not going to get an elite pick in this draft, would it be worth us going all in for someone like Jonathan Kuminga? The Brooklyn Nets as well, who found themselves on the outside of this draft. Now teams who are tanking also have to start rethinking, okay, consistently, teams that tank all season long are not being rewarded in this draft. They are not being rewarded with top picks. If you're no longer going to be rewarded by the NBA for having the worst record in the league and intentionally tanking, and now they're trying to be smart about it, right? So now what they do is they have nothing but young guys. They find excuses not to play the veterans. And then they trade away the veterans as much as possible so that they have a really young team, maybe some big contracts of players or veterans who are not playing, and they might buy them out or what have you. And then they'll have the young guys say that they're developing so that they lose a lot, and then they end up with the high draft pick. Now we've all caught on. We know what it means that you're tanking. Now I want to contrast that with teams who have late season injuries. Toronto Raptors had a whole bunch of injuries. You couldn't prevent that. Okay, I see why you're not pushing for W's. They were still competing, but you just didn't have the talent, right? Dallas Mavericks, injury to Kyrie Irving, right? Other teams who have late season injuries, it's understandable. Atlanta Hawks, it's understandable. You're not penalized as much, but you got the first round pick last year. But teams that spend the whole season, you're no longer getting rewarded. You're no longer getting rewarded. So now how does that impact how these teams begin to look at the foreseeable future? How are they looking to build now? How are they looking to construct their team if I can't take this cheat code and just tank and still be rewarded for it? Why are they still rewarded for it? Because of revenue sharing. People want to talk about conspiracy theory and all this stuff around, is the NBA rigged? Yes, the NBA is rigged. The NFL is rigged. All of it. Professional sports, especially in the modern era, is rigged. When you have a monopoly around a certain sport, there's no other competitive organization. You get to write your own rules, whether they're constitutional or not, such as the salary cap, completely unconstitutional, against the law, to be able to tell someone we control an outside entity, the actual corporation controls your earning value because there's no competition. And we're going to dictate that to you. We're going to tell you what it is. We're not even going to go into how they lied for years and said they were losing money and they realized after they brought in a lawyer that they weren't losing money. Matter of fact, they were making so much money they had to make up for it. And that's why you have this huge leap in salary contracts. But now the NBA said, okay, well, we're an expanding organization. We're about to go into Europe. So we're going to need a new face of the NBA as LeBron ages out. And you know who we like? Luca. Luca. And you know who where he would be best probably suited to be the face of the NBA with the Lakers. Knicks already have their team, not the Clippers. So we're going to go with the Lakers. And we're going to make this trade happen. Nico Harrison didn't know what the hell was going on. He was told what to do. Now it's apparently clear. This thing, this collusion, was done behind closed doors. It's it is what it's always been. Okay? Now, if we can get past that, we can recognize how things need to adjust or will adjust or potentially adjust moving forward. Moving forward. People who are fans of teams like the Utah Jazz, Charlotte Hornets, I feel for you. I really do. I really do. And I'm gonna get to your comment in a second, Dante. Appreciate the comment. Um, I feel for those franchises, but now you're gonna have to ask yourself, why are we continuing to do the same things over and over and coming out with the same product? And you need to look beyond your general manager and your head coach, and need to start looking at your ownership group, the people who are really making the decisions, who sign checks. Those people are not as uninvolved as they would make themselves seem. Those guys are still with their fingers on everything, pushing buttons, right? Like a kid playing with a new game. Ooh, what does this do? What happens if I hire the guy I want to hire? What happens if I bring in the guy that I think is well? And they're playing with this thing, and you're getting the product that you are. Now, here's the thing. This is why I said everything has changed because now these things are becoming unavoidable in terms of its recognition. Teams like the Utah Jazz, Charlotte Hornets, and I use them as an example because they're perpetually in the lottery. And we perpetually find them tanking and not being able to put a winning product out on the court. They're going to have to make adjustments. Now, here's the major adjustment. Not everyone, winning is not the same for everyone. And how each team is going to win is not going to look the same. Winning for some teams might mean making the playoffs each year, even if they know they're not going to win a championship. Winning for some teams and organizations is going to look like being competitive in the playoffs or on the verge in the play in each year while managing their salary cap. That may be what winning is for most teams. And if I'm honest with you, that's probably where it should be. But how these teams are going to construct themselves to be able to do that, that is what differentiates one organization to the next. Some spaces are less desirable to go play than others. Let's be honest. Brothers don't want to go to Utah. We don't. Too much bad history there, culturally, socially. We don't want to go there. Let's be honest. None of us have Utah at the top of our list if we're going into the NBA. It's probably, if not the lowest, second to lowest. But then organizations that don't win, that don't develop well, that don't ensure that there's a consistent product that you can rely upon to know that you will have a successful career, like Charlotte. Up until recently, Minnesota. Right? These are the organizations that are going to have to figure out how they are going to become winners outside of just tanking. Outside of tanking. You see, even in this draft, as good as Cooper Flag is, he's not a generational talent. He is not a franchise changing talent. He's not a Zion. He's not a Wemby. He's not even John Morant. He's not Derrick Rose, LeBron James. He's not these guys who come in and completely transform your team. They are an asset that allows you to win at a high level, right? Cooper Flag is Scottie Pippen, not Michael Jordan. That's the level of talent he is. Extremely talented, high ceiling, not the highest. He's not Magic Johnson. He's closer to James Worthy. Right. These are the things that we have to differentiate. So if you're a team that was banking on tanking all last year for an opportunity to get Cooper Flag, I would recommend to you that you change that strategy because even though next year's draft with Darren Peterson, AJ DeBonsa, and Cam Boozer and others is probably even more talented than this year's draft, let's be clear. You cannot bank on the draft any longer to ensure that the outcome of your franchise changes. That cannot be the cornerstone of all your moves. If that's where you are, the NBA has already made it clear they're not rewarding that. They're not rewarding that. Let me look at your comment here. Dante Massey, what's good, my man? It's good to see you back in here. I think we're going to see a lot of moves this offseason. Facts. Due to the playoffs and lottery, I think Pistons will take advantage, but will be measured on the moves they make. Yes, completely. I've already said it before. I want the Pistons to go after PJ Washington. I want them to do a sign and trade with Dennis Schroeder, maybe throw in a couple second round draft picks and say, hey, and we could throw in our second round draft pick this year if we want. That pick can go right to Dallas. And they can say, hey, we're going to give you Dennis Schroeder. You need a semi starting level point guard while Kyrie Irving gets healthy. You know, he's not going to come back until probably after the All Star break, right? Because ACLs nowadays takes about 6 months to come back from, and then another solid month or so to work your way back in. He got hurt in what, March? Kyrie got hurt in March. So that has him somewhere around September, October before he's going to start ramping up and getting himself going. That's a great question. Why do I want PJ Washington? PJ Washington is a more seasoned Jabari Smith Jr., even though he's a little bit shorter. He's about 6'7" without shoes. He's got about a 7'3" wingspan. He's tough. He's about 240 pounds. He's physical. He guards multiple positions. He can knock down threes while being able to create his own shot somewhat, kind of like in the Tobias Harris mode. He can finish around the rim well. He's versatile enough defensively to also play small ball center. And he's a strong finisher inside with good athleticism. He has the agility and lateral movement to be able to stay in front of guards so he can switch on pick and rolls. And he also has the ability to facilitate and make good reads and passes. He was a key component of the Dallas Mavericks run to the NBA Finals last year. But here's the thing, he's starting at 3 alongside Anthony Davis. You now have Cooper Flag. PJ Washington is due for a contract extension. He has only one more year on his deal next year. There's no way Dallas is going to pay that money moving forward when you already have Cooper Flag, which means Dallas has to make the most of that opportunity, to make the most of that asset. And there's no higher point than right now. If we can offer a second round draft pick and the point guard they need to fill in for Kyrie Irving and Dennis Schroeder, that would be, I think, a match made in heaven. It would win on both sides. If we have to throw in, I'm gonna be honest with you, we got to throw in 2 draft picks. If we got to throw in a first round draft pick, I'm not mad at that. Maybe not for next year, but maybe the following year. Right? Second rounder and a first, future first. All right. I'm not mad at that at all because PJ Washington is only, I believe, 26 or 27 years old. He's only 26 or 27 years old, making Clay come off the bench. Now, you have to understand, Clay is one of the few shooting guards that they have on that team, even though he's more of a small forward at this point, which is another reason why you're getting a bit of a logjam. Shane Gretzky, yes, he is a bit inconsistent, but a lot of that inconsistency has to do with the fluctuating roster with different guys coming on. And also sometimes he's thrust into a larger role. But a lot of guys also look inconsistent when they're in high leverage moments, like the NBA Finals or making a run to the NBA Finals. All that's to say is, I think PJ Washington can be a huge asset for the Detroit Pistons, filled in alongside Jalen Duren. He's the versatile defender who still brings you shooting, toughness, rebounding that allows you to compete at a high level. Oh, did I miss your comment? Oh, would you take Grant Williams? No, too small. Too small. And sometimes he's just doing too much. Um, but no, too small. And why would I take Grant Williams, who I think is 30, close to 30? PJ Washington's what, 26, 27? Let me look it up real quick. PJ Washington is how many years old? Well, let me start with Grant Williams. Grant Williams is only 26. Okay, I take that back. But he's only, I believe he's 6'5". He's 6'5". He's like a PJ Tucker versus PJ Washington, who's also 26. Only makes about a couple $1 million, actually maybe $1 million more, so about 15 million this year. Only be making 14 million next year. He's at a larger wingspan. He's more versatile in terms of his ability to defend at the rim and finish inside. He's just a better player than Grant Williams. All that's to say is I think he could be a great asset for the Detroit Pistons. But back into the larger scheme of things, expect moves like this to change down the line. Down the line. Teams are going to be adjusting now that the East seems wide open. Jason Tatum is out. That's an Achilles. I used to do athletic training back in the day. I'm almost 100% sure that's an Achilles tendon tear. Ray Floyd, my man, was good. We need a much bigger four, a guy who can guard Cat and AD. But be honest with you, PJ Washington can. He plays a lot bigger than his size, similar to Asar Thompson. He plays a lot bigger than his actual size. Would you take anybody from the bum Lakers? I probably. It depends. It depends how it fits. I have teams like, and I'm gonna get to Cleveland. I'm gonna get to the Golden State Warriors. I talked about the Golden State Warriors a little bit, but the Cleveland Cavaliers going down 3-1 to the Pacers are also kind of shook up. And once again, Darius Garland is struggling to stay healthy. And that team has been within an identity kind of crisis between Jarrett Allen and Darius Garland look great together. Donovan Mitchell and Evan Mobley look better together. So they've been staggering those sets of minutes and then closing games out with all four. But here's the thing. Now you're looking at the second apron and you're down 3-1 in the second round instead of going on to the conference finals with an opportunity to go to the NBA finals. They might be looking to make changes too. I actually have Jarrett Allen going to the Los Angeles Lakers for someone like Rui Hachimura and maybe a Dorian Finney-Smith. Gives them more depth, gives them size in different areas, but I think a guy like that would do extremely well there. Darius Garland, I think he might end up someplace like Orlando, who desperately needs a lead guard to open up that offense, where he doesn't have to be the main guy. He's more of a facilitating auxiliary piece. Right. But a lot of things are going to change this offseason, which is going to shift some teams into a championship window from the outside, into playoff position who are on the outside, right? Into a position right before contending, like a team like Atlanta, who's right on the outside. All right. I think there's going to be a lot of moves made this offseason. And the draft has only accelerated that as well, along with the injuries and the way these playoffs are playing out. When we think about things like what this second apron means to a lot of teams, being taxed at the rate that they will be. A lot of these teams are not going to want to be taxed if they're not seeing the return. A lot of these teams really are operating based upon an extremely high floor of profit. When I say a high floor of profit, I'm speaking to the revenue sharing that comes through the television contracts. Those television contracts allow them to make a lot of money even if they're losing. and they count on that money even when they're losing. They're not going to want to dip into that money for nothing at all, unless they're making so much more money from winning. That's the real of it. They're not losing money. They're just getting less profit on top of all their costs. That's why so many people are trying to buy NBA teams because of the high floor of profit that they when I say a high floor, I mean how much money they're making no matter what happens. Guaranteed money. That's why these teams that seem insignificant, these franchises that are smaller markets are worth 3, 4, $5 billion, if not more, because of how much you're making every single year. These are things that are going to factor into teams maintaining rosters with talented players and saying, you know what? Maybe we need to downshift. Maybe Garland is hurt again. Evan Mobley got hurt. We need to rethink this roster. Jason Tatum is out. Al Horford's getting older. Drew Holiday is getting older. We need to rethink this roster. Stephen Curry got hurt. Jonathan Kuminga, we probably can't afford him after signing Jimmy Butler. We got to rethink this roster. And I think this is going to happen throughout the league. I'm fully expecting teams to start emptying out in terms of being willing to trade away pieces they may not have been willing to before and potentially looking to acquire pieces that will allow them to take a step forward, even if before, maybe only a week ago, a few days ago, they might have been willing to stand pat and do marginal upgrades on the periphery of their rosters and teams. Let me see to get some of these other comments. Um, Vanderbilt is a fake Draymond or Bam. When he was in Minnesota and Utah, he was uh, no hype, so he had to come to LeBron, the Lakers league defender, according to I mean, I'll say this: Jared Vanderbilt's had a lot of injuries, so that's kind of hurt him to a large degree there. But I will say this about Jared Vanderbilt: he is a really good defender, but good defenders on an island look very different than good defenders who play with other good defenders. Jared Vanderbilt playing alongside of other really quality defenders like a Rudy Gobert would look spectacular. Would look spectacular playing with other elite defenders, right? You take somebody like here's a trade I've been looking at for a while, DeAndre Ayton, and you put him in Atlanta next to a Jalen Johnson, next to a Zachary Risashe, next to a Dyson Daniels, and Onyeka Okongwu coming off the bench, right? That team has a lot of really, I would say, elite to above average defenders with length, athleticism, anticipation, and IQ. You put Aiton on that team, he's going to look completely different. These are the things that you have to consider when you're looking around the league and you're looking at the parity. There is so much talent in the league right now. There is so much talent. There is no excuse not to be winning. If you are not winning, and when I say winning, I mean you are in position to compete for the play-in or the playoffs. Everyone should be in position unless you've had a catastrophic injury season. Toronto Raptors had a horrific injury-riddled season. You can't do anything about that. I don't judge people off that, right? Quickly was hurt. Barrett was hurt. Barnes was hurt. Porter was hurt. Everybody was hurt and missed significant time. You're not going to win. Okay. But teams like Utah, teams like, let me just take a scroll, Washington, there's no reason for you to be losing. But also considering teams like Phoenix, who are also already positioned to make major changes. Kevin Durant is now available. That's a big deal. You now have the Brooklyn Nets, who've been losing on purpose, the Chicago Bulls, who just can't get right. All these teams are now going to have to look themselves in the mirror and say, we can't use this strategy any longer of just tanking and losing on purpose because we're not getting rewarded. That number 3 pick of Ace Bailey is a far cry from the number 2 pick of Dylan Harper. Even though he only measured out to, I believe, I want to say 6'4", Measured out to Dylan Harper measured out to 6'4.5". That's not bad at all. It's not bad at all with the 6'10.5" wingspan. That's actually really good because that means with shoes he's 6'5.5". That's that's how big James Harden is. That's Jamal Murray size. Look it up here. James Harden draft measurements. I'll say James might be a little bit taller. No, James Harden measured out at uh 6'4". Let me pull it up real quick. Johnson, James Harden measured out to 6'4", shorter than Dylan Harper. Dylan Harper and James Harden are very strong comparisons. I think if Dylan Harper had came out next year, oh my God, with one more year of seasoning like James Harden had, crazy, but great comparison for their games. The ability to pass the ball, facilitate, handle, get downhill to the rim, sneaky athleticism, great finishing. They know how to use their bodies. Great comparison, right? Dylan Harper uh, also has a great air about him in terms of professionalism. There's something about these young men whose parents played in the NBA, which is why I think Jace Richardson is still going to get a shot in the first round because something about them. When your dad played in the NBA, and you've grown up around the game, you're not a deer in the headlights anymore. You're not new to this. You're not new to the media. You're not new to pressure or to, the big lights and the atmosphere and the stadiums. You've been on the floor. You've shot around on the floor as a kid. So it's a bit familiar. It's a bit comforting to be there. It's a big difference aesthetically inside of somebody's mind when they're there for the first time. I think Cooper Flag is going to be great. I think Dylan Harper is going to be great. Worst case scenario for Dylan Harper, he's going to be a long term NBA starter at point guard, especially because I keep telling you guys the point guard position is falling away. A lot of the elite, all time great point guards that have been around for the last 10 to 15 years are getting hurt, are retiring, falling away. Westbrook, Irving, Curry, D Rose, John Wall, all these guys were phenomenal first round picks, number one pick of the draft. Worthy point guards are gone, leaving, aging, injured, which means that that position is opening wide up, which is why I think somebody like a Jeremiah Fears is going to go a lot higher than people think. Because if you can get you an elite point guard who can get downhill, changes things. When now the competition is Tyus Jones instead of Stephen Curry. When your competition is Tyrese Halliburton. I don't want to knock him. He's not a bad player. He's having a great year. Nice bounce back. I'm not comparing him to the all-time great point guards like we had to do with Curry and Rose and Westbrook and them. You might have somebody who can turn into a Tyrese Maxey or better level point guard. I compare Jeremiah Fears to Monte Ellis. Could be a great acquisition for the Miami Heat. So these are things for us to really think about how things are going to change in the NBA. Teams are going to start making moves. They're going to start seeing, yo, there's an opportunity for us to move into a position, a status in the NBA that we've been waiting on. They've been waiting. Philadelphia, who knows what happens with Joel Embiid and experimental treatment and all that stuff with his knee. Paul George, how he's going to come back. Jared McCain from his injury, right? A guy who likely would have been rookie of the year had he stayed healthy. You still got Tyrese Maxey there. You got Quentin Grimes, who just balled out for you guys for that short stint after the trade deadline coming from the Dallas Mavericks, right? These are all teams that are in flux. Now, how does this apply to teams like the Detroit Pistons? Because I mostly do a lot of Detroit Pistons content on here. And if you're in here for the first time, this is an interactive live. So if you throw something down in the chat, I'll do my best to get to it. but definitely smash a like button for me, right? Um, I do interactive lives all the time. It's an opportunity for you to engage with the content creator. And if you want to stop and talk about a certain topic, shoot me a super chat, and we can stop and pause and talk about that significantly for a stretch. Otherwise, I'll do my best to get to it. All that's to say is there's a lot of these teams fluctuating right now that I think that we're going to have to revisit at the end of this offseason and say, wow, how things have changed. How things have changed. I can imagine if Utah has Isaiah Collier, Colin Sexton, Jonathan Kaminga, Laurie Markkinen, and Walker Kessler. They look like a very different team with the Keontae George off the bench, Jordan Clarkson off the bench, Taylor Hendricks, John Collins, all these guys off the bench. That is a valid unit to try to make a run to get into the playoffs. Even if you don't have that top 5 guy, you're going to have to make it work because tanking is not going to save you. I was thinking of the Boondocks. Quincy Jones ain't going to save you, right? Adam Silver ain't going to save you. He's going to make sure you get that ping pong ball. You're already a destination nobody wants to go in a smaller market, and now you're losing on purpose. Ain't no reason to be saved. So I'm excited for how things are going to play out because I think that it's going to be something that one domino is going to tip, and then the next, and the next, and the next, and the next, and it's going to be a really fun off season. It's going to be a really fun off season. There are teams, Atlanta, Orlando, Miami, Detroit. We're all on the outside looking in, right on the outside. We're going to be looking and being like, how I get in there? And over there peeking through the window like Michael Jackson's Moonwalker movie and the kids peeking out on the outside. See him do all the dance moves. I want to get in there. I want to get in the playoffs. I want to get in the second round. I want to get to the NBA finals. And might be thinking I'm one piece away. Now a one piece that is now available that didn't used to be available. Can you imagine Jarrett Allen on the Los Angeles Lakers? Can you imagine Darius Garland on the Orlando Magic? DeAndre Ayton on the Atlanta Hawks? Jeremiah Fears on the Miami Heat? And that young roster with Khalil Ware, Jaime Jaquez, those guys developing over there. It's going to be a fun offseason, y'all. Let me see. Let me get to a couple more comments here. Shane Gretzky was good. Pistons can't afford to lose. No more buzzer beater games next season. It's going to be a dogfight for seeding. It is, and I keep telling people that. I think their floor is 40 wins, 40 to 42 wins. Their ceiling is about 50. Now, of course, I can't foretell what teams are going to look like if somebody gets hurt, stuff like that. I have no idea, but I can say this much on paper, just from what I've seen already from different guys and watching the NBA consistently, there are a lot of organizations who are going to be due for a bounce back, who were on the outside looking into the play-in this year. Toronto Raptors are one. That is a playoff team. And not just maybe we can get in. That's a playoff team who can make noise in the first round, maybe even the second. The Orlando Magic, right? Atlanta, Philadelphia, precisely. So you start factoring those teams in. Who knows? Chicago might get their stuff together. You start factoring these changes. You start factoring in how these teams will continue to evolve. And what you realize is that it's going to be a fight. And for you to be positioned to win these fights, you are going to have to take steps forward. And I already said in regards to the Detroit Pistons, they're not going to mess with that young core. They should not mess with the young core. But they definitely need to upgrade the veterans. Definitely need to upgrade the veterans. They can get their hands on a PJ Washington, Jabari Smith Jr., if they can get their hands on a Marcus Smart instead of Tim Hardaway Jr. or Malik Beasley, if they get their hands on a Chris Middleton, right? All these different guys who are able to play at a far higher level when it comes to the playoffs, you're going to see these Pistons take a jump, a huge jump. We need Laurie Markkinen. I don't think so. He doesn't play good enough defense. He's not physical enough, and his game is really relegated on rhythm and shooting. And I don't know how much that's going to work in the playoffs. There's a lot of physicality that breaks your rhythm, like the New York Knicks tried to do with Cade. Tried, and most people's shooting decreases. It drops down, which means that if your shooting is going down and you're gonna struggle to get into a rhythm, how valuable are you? How much can you do other things? I think he can rebound, but I don't think he can defend at the level that the Detroit Pistons would like to hang their hat on. So with that, I don't think Laurie Markkinen is the answer. But I don't know if Utah wants to get rid of him, considering where they are in this draft. That they didn't find that guy. They're gonna have to sign that guy. And if they can sign a Jonathan Kuminga, they might be more ready to take a step forward with a Laurie Markkinen as a number 2 or 3 option rather than him as your best player. Get to a couple more comments and then I'm gonna end it from there. Um, Let me see. Uh, yeah, I hope we can make improvements. Lights too bright for Kevin Porter Jr., but I think he is gonna be okay. Um, oh, would you take a chance on Kevin Porter Jr. as a replacement for Dennis Schroeder? No. No, he doesn't have the experience, and it's too small of a role for him. It's too small of a role. I think you need more experience coming off the bench, behind, um, especially behind Jaden Ivey coming back. Who's going to get 35 plus minutes? Who's going to look like an all star next year? And Jaden Ivey's going to have a huge year. So, no, I don't think. I think we need somebody who can fit like a Marcus Smart. Marcus Smart can play alongside Marcus Sasser and Ron Holland. Has experience, but at 32 years old, he's not necessarily in a position to get a lot of minutes, nor as do I think he's demanding something like that. He'll still be able to play on a playoff team. He might steal some minutes from Ron Holland and Marcus Sasser, but he's someone who can defend up and down the line with versatility, as well as play a specific role. I think he fits more than a Kevin Porter Jr. ever would. You said Pistons could have really been going crazy to the Eastern Conference Finals this year. That's good. Yeah, no, for real. They could have, but they were a long ways away. I did not. I thought they were going to get beat by experience, not talent, experience. And so whoever they bring in this offseason needs to have an incredible amount of experience that allows the Detroit Pistons to continue to evolve. Can't coach experience. No, because real time experience is different. You can't call a timeout before everything, and you need to be able to perceive things in real time, which means that even as experienced as your coach might be, you have to have players that have a high basketball IQ. I'm not talking about a high basketball IQ in terms of like standard IQ. I'm talking about playoff level IQ. You have to understand how much more physical things are going to get and how you acclimate your game to be able to play with that level of physicality. When you think about how much Asar Thompson, Jalen Duren, even Cade a little bit, got into their own heads and being frustrated around a lack of foul calls in the first few games of the series against the Knicks versus how they finished out that series. Things that they couldn't finish around the rim because of contact. The plays they weren't able to make because of the physicality that Josh Hart was bringing and Mikal Bridges. All of a sudden, by the end of the series, they were able to make that adjustment and play well. But these are learning curves that you only get from being there. If you have someone like a Marcus Smart, Chris Middleton, these guys who have been there, even PJ Washington, who's been to the NBA Finals, when you bring in those types of guys that have that level of experience, they're also able to kind of speed up that learning curve and tell you, hey, watch out for this. This is how you deal with that. So instead of crying to the referees, they could talk with their veterans behind closed doors in the locker room, right, on the court, and they can get real time advice that allows them to make the adjustment. That's why veterans are so important. So I'd rather go with an older veteran like that who also plays defense um, than someone like a Kevin Porter Jr. Let me get to some of these others, and I got to hop off. Do you think JB's system can get us over the hump. I think players get you over the hump. Your system gets you there. And then after that, it's about making adjustments in X's and O's. There is no system that is going to get you to a championship. Your system is what gets you into a good playoff seating based upon your talent level and your injury prevention. And then once you get there, your coach needs to be able to execute. Your players need to be able to execute the scheme, but your coach needs to be able to adjust rotations, make adjustments, perceive what's taking place, and communicate to his players. So it's a very different game in the playoffs than it is the regular season. So it's less about the system in the playoffs. JB needs help on the offensive side. I don't think so. Oh, Sports Times, I didn't even see you jump up in here, man. Oh, what's good, man? What's good, Sports Times? Were you looking at Maxime Reynaud for the Detroit Pistons or just as a player? Just as a player, actually. I don't necessarily think that he would be there for the Pistons when they select at number 37. I think he's going in the lottery, if not the first round for sure. There's some other guys that might be interesting, but I'm also still interested in Tolu Smith. Um, so I think that they have some other guys to look at, and I don't think this draft is really as important for the Detroit Pistons' future. But I do think that Maxime Reynaud is going into the lottery. Um, Let me see. JB needs help on the offensive end. I don't necessarily think he needs help. I mean, when Asar Thompson irons out his offensive game next season, he's going to be averaging 16 to 18 points regularly, getting to the free throw line regularly, doing a lot of facilitating and playmaking regularly. Jaden Ivey is going to be averaging over 20 points a game more than likely next season, along with Cade Cunningham's 25 to 27 points a game. Jalen Duren is going to be improved next year. He's going to be averaging somewhere around 16 points a game next year. So when you factor all these different things in, your offense is going to be fine. The real thing is you need problem solvers. You need veterans who can subsidize the learning curve of that team, of this young roster. I think that's where we see the Detroit Pistons making the greatest adjustments. Get to the last comment for the day. Would love to see you live with Downtown Deuce and everything King. Yeah, yeah. I mean, those dudes are dope. Those dudes are dope. Um, there's a lot of stuff going on in the NBA. The way things are moving, I think it's going to be an off season to remember. I think it's going to be an off season where we're going to be on here. I'm going to be on here live a lot, especially as these playoffs continue to roll out. Tonight, I got my daughter's recital thing. So I'm not gonna be able to catch some of the games early, so I'll probably rewatch them later on. But all in all, appreciate y'all for coming through. Do you think we can keep our core long term if we have success? Yes. Um, I think we keep our core, but we need to extend them this offseason. We need to extend Jaden Ivey and Jalen Duren this offseason while their value is at the lowest. And they can play on, hey, you get the security of this contract. So you don't have to worry about if you get injured again, you don't have that financial security. And then you get Jaden Ivey for 20, 22, 23 million. Jalen Duren for 18 million, 20 million. And then now you have cap flexibility going forward in the future to re-sign Asar Thompson because he's a must re-sign. If you don't, I guarantee you next year both will be far more expensive, and you'll be competing with the rest of the league, trying to sign a young talented player who can put them over the top. Right, teams like Utah, Miami, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. So yeah, I think we could keep the core intact. But I appreciate all y'all coming on here. If you enjoyed this interactive live, if you enjoy being able to talk with the content creator in real time while they're doing videos, smash the like button for me. Hit subscribe and the bell for notifications because that tells YouTube that you enjoy this type of a channel and that you want to be notified the next time I go live because you might have something you thinking about and only get a chance to post on X. You get a chance to chop it up with me here. And if you want some time to just talk about it, shoot me a super chat. All right. I don't care. Whatever it is. And we sit and chop it up. All right. I'm holler at y'all later. Y'all have an amazing day, amazing weekend. Continue to enjoy these playoffs. And I'm going to be back sooner than you know. Peace.